It's now official that South Korea and the Netherlands have forged an alliance to play leading roles in the global chip race. But why do they find each other so attractive or appealing to one another? Let's wrap up President Yoon Suk Yeol's state visit to the Netherlands with Professor Lee Hee-eun. Welcome back, Professor Lee.
Thanks for having me back.
Professor Lee, chip cooperation with countries like the U.S. and Japan has been actively ongoing for South Korea, but why is chip cooperation or the new chip alliance with the Netherlands so important at this moment?
This has to do because of the sensitivity of the chip market and particularly the supply chain for semiconductors. As you know, the semiconductor market requires a lot of sort of intricate parts as well as distribution, the installation of those parts into various products that we use on a daily basis. And so because these supply chains are so sensitive to various worldwide events, we saw that recently with the pandemic, which basically delayed production in many different parts of the world, which then resulted in delays in sort of final end products like cars and phones and computers. And so because the Netherlands produces, and particularly companies in the Netherlands produce particular machines that are very important to the production of these semiconductors, having a chip alliance between South Korean companies like Samsung and SK Hynix is really critical for Korea to establish itself in terms of protecting the supply chain so that Korean chip makers can depend on a steady supply of equipment in order to produce those chips, which are necessary for the products that we use on a daily basis.
Definitely, and it's apparently the first time that the Netherlands has stated such a term called semiconductor alliance with a foreign country. Now, why do you think Amsterdam has chosen Seoul over other cities or countries?
Well, particularly as we know, in terms of the chip market, you know, one of the biggest players is in Taiwan, TSMC. Mm-hmm. For a while, a lot of companies in the Netherlands supplied Taiwan, but also China as well, because China has also wanted to increase its production of semiconductors. But as we know, because of the recent tensions between the United States and China, and specifically the United States is targeting, particularly Chinese companies with respect to various kinds of national security issues. The Netherlands, of course, has seen a significant reduction in its ability to be able to trade with China, but also with Taiwan. There's a concern because a lot of production of Taiwanese chips is made in China. And there's that relationship between China and Taiwan that I guess concerns the Netherlands. And so the Netherlands needs to find, and its producers need to find another partner to ensure that its materials and its production of these sensitive equipment will be steady and comfortable. So Korea, of course, makes a lot of sense for the Netherlands because of Samsung, as I mentioned, and SK Hynix. And because Samsung wants to be, and SK Hynix wants to be a major player beyond TSMC to dominate the market, Netherlands, of course, sees this as an opportunity for its producers to be able to take advantage of the current situation between the United States and China.
That does make a very good point, why Seoul is the most appealing out of all the nations. Now, let's delve deeper into President Yoon's trip to the Netherlands. He was the first foreign leader to have checked out the ASML's heavily controlled, the so-called clean room there. Now, that says a lot about how seriously the Dutch firm is taking Korea as its partner, right?
Absolutely. I mean, ASML is the leading producer of sort of a specific machine called photolithography. Mm-hmm. And this particular sort of technology allows semiconductor producers to produce next generation chips. And so because these machines are such high demand, and because these machines are highly complex, and so, for example, ASML can only produce 50 machines, these machines per year, which leads to very fierce competition between, of course, Samsung and TSMC and other companies who want to access these machines to produce these next generation chips. So for the president to be able to visit the clean room of ASML really is a symbolic gesture for ASML to indicate that it really wants to upgrade the relationship between ASML and South Korean companies and Netherlands and South Korea as a whole. And so I think this is a win-win situation for both companies, so that basically you can have a steady supply of machines, and Samsung and SK Hynix can make sure that they will ensure a certain level of production of these machines for their desire to produce next generation chips. So I think it's very symbolic, and it's indication of this growing relationship, I think, which, as we mentioned, is strategic.
Definitely. Now, all eyes are on how much and how quickly South Korean firms will be able to get EUV, that's extreme ultraviolet lithography technology from ASML. But as we all know, other global chip firms are partners of ASML. Will obtaining EUV help South Korea actually lead the global chip race? What's your take on this?
Right. I mean, the big Samsung, some years ago announced that it really wanted to dominate and be the #1 leader in terms of producing these next generation chips. And so TSMC is currently the market leader. And I think Samsung sees an opportunity to maybe overtake TSMC in this field, specifically because there are external factors that are, I think, contributing to potentially this opportunity for South Korean companies. And I mentioned before, the United States, of course, has been really keen on competition with China. And the reason why this affects TSMC is because the United States has legislation called the CHIPS Act, which basically restricts a lot of companies from doing business with Chinese companies. And this potentially affects TSMC because, again, as I mentioned, TSMC has a lot of production in China itself. And so because the United States is very keen on making sure that China is in check with respect to producing sensitive chips that have influences on national security, Samsung can jump in, of course, with its own production, not relying on China per se, and then take advantage of this so that its production is not related necessarily specifically to Chinese market and also Chinese production, but then the Netherlands understands this and can then take advantage of the situation such that now Samsung can get exclusive access to these machines, then that can propel it to become the market leader in this technology.
All right, Professor Lee, thank you so much, as always, for your insight. You have a great day.
You too.